Saints move to 1-0. They go to Atlanta, get a win. It was a wild one. Sharief Ishaq was there. Sounds like he's a little beat up. Sharief, you doing okay?
Oh, dude, I'm 40 years old, man. My body is just always beat up. Yes, thank you for moving me up. I do have to have an MRI on my back, but I'm not, I'm okay. I just want to see what's going on.
I got you. All right. Well, tell me about your trip out to Atlanta. You said on Twitter it was maybe the wildest Saints-Falcons game you have ever covered. You stand by that a few days later?
Yeah, I do. I know people want to say the game in 2018, the Drew Brees, spin game in the overtime where he, won it on the QB sneak. But, the way this one just ended, I was in the press box and I was sitting next to John Hendricks and Eileen. I looked to the left. I was like, this is probably going to end up like the LSU-Florida State game. And look, it ended up kind of like a similar way with the LSU-Florida State game with the blocked field goal at the end. The Saints fighting all the way back in the fourth quarter, and that offense looking like what it should look like for most of the season, and just a span of 15 minutes. It was just crazy. I mean, the crazy events that happened that led up to the touchdown, the missed 2-point conversion, and them marching it down the field, the penalty on Marshawn Lattimore that wasn't really a holding. Then they get the ball back, and the Landry catch, the field goal. It was just crazy. And then them getting the ball back, you're like, all right, what crazy stuff is going to happen for them to have a chance to win the game? And you saw it almost unfold, even with Marshawn Lattimore's play at the end, which he should have never done, to give them 15 extra yards. But it was wild. I just really don't think it was something I've ever seen before in this rivalry.
It was something. I had kind of written them off there, but they scrapped and clawed and found their way back. What went wrong offensively in the first half?
What didn't go wrong? But the issue is, Hunt, last week, what did I tell you on your show? I said I need to see them for 3 or 4 games before I can make any kind of judgment, because they really haven't played any time together, even in the preseason games. Yeah, you saw them play for that one series, but still, Michael Thomas didn't play, and you're talking about your defense who played a couple of series, and it still wasn't that clean because it wasn't against the number one team in the Chargers, and they played. And during training camp, you're not really tackling. So those reps, they needed those reps during the preseason and never got them all together. And you saw it for the first 3 quarters. The offensive line, although Dennis Allen did say the offensive line, he thought when they reviewed the tape, played a little bit better, and some of the blame did fall on Jameis and the receivers. And he's right. Some of those offensive linemen did play well. Ruiz struggled, though, for some bits and pieces of that game. But in the fourth quarter, when they went to the up-tempo, that's when they started clicking. And you saw that a lot in training camp with Jameis Winston when they ran a 2-minute drill at the end of training camp practices. He just looks comfortable, doesn't have to think, gets the ball out. His receivers just find the open windows and the coverage of the defense, and that's what they did in the fourth quarter. And it works. Now, is it going to look like that every game, throughout the entire game? No. It's just going to take some time for them to gel. And Mike and Jameis, they weren't clicking in the first 3 quarters. You saw a couple of times he threw it by him one time, then he was running a couple slants, threw it behind him, and Thomas had to slide and try to reach back for it. That all got figured out by the time they got to the fourth quarter.
How big of a concern was that rush defense for you, and do you think that's something they can improve on as the season goes on?
It was not pretty, Jeremy. Not at all. Those holes, you could probably still run through some of those holes that Cordell Patterson was getting for that offensive line. And Cam Jordan said it best. He's like, that was just sloppy. That we have to fix that. 120 yards from Patterson. And, yeah, he's a really good back / whatever you want to use him as a receiver. And they were just opening up holes on the right and left side. The middle was just struggling. I mean, that middle of that defensive line, just no penetration. They couldn't shed blocks. The offensive linemen, they just weren't doing much. I mean, not to have a single sack was a surprise for me. Not really much pressure. Cam did say, hey, it's a running back playing quarterback essentially back there with Mariota. And he's right. But it was a little a shock to me for them not to get back there and disrupt Mariota. At times, he had 4 or 5 seconds to throw the ball, and he made, the throws into the open windows at times. But yeah, that ain't going to happen much more moving forward. Once they get a game or 2 under their belt, I think, that shifts over and that defensive line gets ugly again.
You say you need to see him 3 or 4 games, kind of figure it out. I'm assuming you've seen enough of Michael Thomas to figure that he's just about back to normal.
I'll tell you, whenever he caught that first touchdown, he was pacing up and down on the sideline after that TD. It looked like he was just foaming at the mouth to get back out there. It looked like old Mike. It looked like he was talking to himself. He was hyping himself up, hyping his teammates up, the defense. He was just yelling. You started to see the old Mike after that first touchdown, and I think it's going to get scary once this offense gets it together. The whole thing, offensive line, running game. The running game was non-existent. If you take away Taysom's runs, there was no running game. Absolutely no running game. It was not good. But once they get it going, Michael Thomas especially, it's going to be something special. And let me tell you something. All 5 of his receptions for the people who like to make fun of his slants, not a single one was on a slant. Just to let you know, none of those catches were on a slant. Back shoulder, there were the fades. The 3 of them were on fade. I mean, just goes to show you he can run the route tree, and whenever that offense gets going, it's going to be something special.
As I look at the Saints' schedule, you got the Panthers with Baker, who moves around a good bit. You got Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. You've got Trey Lance in San Francisco. You still got another one with Mariota. Deshaun Watson comes back. Jalen Hurts still on the schedule. Baker again. Was what you saw from Mariota still kind of concerning as far as the backup quarterbacks who move around, giving the Saints some issues?
It does. It really does concern me a lot. And Mariota, I think, had like 72 yards on the ground, and most of it was in that zone read. And that, I told you about last week, that concerned me a lot. And then first play of the game, you saw it, and I was like, it's maybe easier said than done to contain quarterbacks that elusive. It's such a disciplined type of play. And look, I was getting fooled upstairs in the press box, and I don't know what it was like on the field for them on the end with Cam and Davenport trying to figure it out. And, in the last couple of drives, you started to see that they figured it out. They figured it out when they had Werner back there, just kind of watching Mariota, and that worked a little bit. But, man, with a better quarterback, no disrespect to Mariota, but some of those other names you threw out there they're better quarterbacks. Maybe not Trey Lance, but some of those other guys, a little bit shiftier and have way better arms and accuracy. That is something that, the big question mark whenever this defense gets on the field against those mobile quarterbacks.
When you think of the Saints receivers, obviously Michael Thomas is going to get a ton of the love, but to me, you don't win that game without Jarvis Landry. Talk about what it's like to have his impact on the field and also his leadership that he brings to the football team.
I just like how calm, cool, and confident he is on the field, in terms of keeping his composure with the offense, even when they were down. It just seems like he's always ready to go. Those routes he was running, I mean, you guys seen him. Jeremy, you're on the team with him. He's one of the best. He is a silent assassin, I think. I know maybe he does some talking, a little bit of chirping, but I feel like he's, kind of like a Marcus Colston. The guy can get open. The guy can find the zones, the soft zones, and that catch down the sideline, the go route, the 40 yards, Javis put it on a spot, and I think Jarvis made an even better catch. Go up there and grab that ball, making sure those 2 defenders don't knock it away. And still the controversy is whether he was touched or not. That was another story for another day. But I just think what he brings to this offense opens it up even more for Jameis and Chris Olave and Mike and, Deontay. So, I think that I think everyone was talking about Michael Thomas's game. It was Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry, had the biggest game on offense. He put them in the spots to win the game. And at times, he put them down the field to extend those drives to score those 2 touchdowns for Michael Thomas.
Sharief Ishaq, WDSU, is our guest. All right, outside of the common line of they just have their number, what do you see when the Saints play the Bucs that has allowed them to have the success they have that few other teams in the league have had?
No, whenever we're leaving the locker room and Cam was like, guess we got to go from Mariota to the GOAT. I was like, but you guys have had success against him. I mean, you literally, he goes, yeah, but he gets the ball out quicker than any quarterback in NFL history. I think Cam just likes to,
get those sacks.
He likes to goof around and he likes to say those things just so he can hype himself up to be ready for another big game, and maybe they can continue that success. But hey, man, sometimes when you have a team and a quarterback's number, it's just a mind thing. I mean, for them to 8 interceptions, 13 sacks, and 57 pressures in 4 regular season games since he's been with the Bucs isn't something that just happens out of the ordinary. It's just something you have against them. You have their number. You have a way to get to their offensive line, which is absolutely destroyed. Their offensive line, Donovan Smith got hurt in the Cowboys game, so I don't know what that offensive line is going to look like with the Saints defensive line. They can get it going this week, but it's just a simple thing of having somebody's number. I mean, it happens in any kind of sport. Just one team just beats on the other team somehow, and no matter who plays. But the Saints, for the most part, are going to probably take some of what they did. I mean, I understand it's a different season. and they have a couple different players in the secondary. But for the most part, the defense is the same, and their offense is pretty much the same without, I should say, that banged up offensive line. So I think you're going to see somewhat of the same success. Another close game, though. Same success.
The last time the Bucs had success against the Saints defense, it was actually playoff Lenny getting a part of the fold. How confident are you, that they can slow him down in the run game and the pass game?
Look, man, playoff Lenny showed something against the Cowboys. I mean, that's why I think the key to success for the Buccaneers would be using Leonard Fournette more in the run and as well as the passing game. That's how I think the Buccaneers can beat the Saints and offset some of their blitzes, because I think that's what Dennis Allen does. They like to dial the pressure on Tom Brady because he stands back there. He's not like Marcus Mariota, Jalen Hurts, and some of those other guys. And I think he's just going to have to find a way to get Lenny involved in the game for them, to have a chance to beat the Saints in the Dome. I mean, it's plain and simple as that. I think when Leonard's successful, the Buccaneers are successful.
Last one here, Sharief. We appreciate some time. What's the update on Paulson Adebo?
I feel like it's close. I mean, it was very close. I mean, I think they didn't want to risk it. Like in seasons past, they might have asked him to go out there, not at 100%. I'd be shocked, utterly shocked if he does not play this week. He was day-to-day last week. I think he gets back on the practice field this week and he plays. They definitely need him, even though Chris Godwin isn't going to play in this game because he has a hamstring injury. But they certainly could use him in a big-time way because there are times in that Falcons game where Roby struggled in coverage, and they need him back out there.
Thanks, Sharief. We'll talk next week.
You got it.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.